we're starting to see some threads of leadership coming from Christian Ponder. He's organizing and actually paid for a workout that was off the record. Now, I know a lot of players don't want to do that because there's no insurance covering them in case they get hurt, but is that the kind of thing where we're starting to see the elements of someone who's at least trying to take seriously the responsibility of leadership on a football team, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, having run across a couple of the Viking players and talking to them about it, I think it's a great thing. So do they. It's just unfortunate, as you mentioned, the insurance deal. I know as a former Major League player, every team covers their players with an insurance policy, but every player also has an insurance policy out there that if he doesn't purchase it, he's being a bit foolish.
Right.
And so therefore, when they talk about they don't want to practice because they don't have insurance, that I think their agents have done them a disservice.
Right.
And they can't use that as an excuse, because when you're getting in shape to play a major sport, a major league, you're a professional player.
Right.
You've got to take chances, and by taking chances, I mean you've got to perform your craft and be able to go to camp and do your job. So I think the players and Mr. Ponder trying to be a leader on this squad, because I honestly believe that he will be the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, because they got rid of Jackson, and we all know Brett Favre's not coming back, nor do the Vikings want him back.
But did you see an interview where Favre said it's not that he couldn't play?
Yeah, of course. Of course. It's still in his blood.
Play.
It's still in his blood. The guy, you'll have to tear the jersey off of him, and I think he ran from the game a little bit this year because of the circumstances surrounding that young lady, and we won't go into that. But I think Mr. Ponder is trying to take the bull by the horns, to use a cliche, and get to know his teammates, and you got to give him some credit for doing such a thing.
Well, and I think it also indicates that it's been made clear to him that this is a mantle that's his for the taking, and so he's taking that responsibility seriously. As a Vikings fan who was adamantly skeptical and still very frustrated with that draft pick, I'm at least happy to see that we've got a player that's thinking like a pro, thinking in the future, and wanting to organize his team. He's got to get used to throwing to those receivers.
Hey, not to cut you off, but you said something earlier about Mr. Ponder paying out of his own pocket. Here's a kid out of college, Florida State. He hasn't signed a contract yet. Therefore, he's using money that his agent or he can sign a signature loan or whatever on income, of future income. He's putting his neck out there on the line for this ball club.
That's the kind of thing I think players respond to. And that's the best you can do when you can't be in the clubhouse making that happen now.
Exactly.
And I think that's great. Well, I have a couple random thoughts and one rant I want to share with you, Al.
Let's go.
I watched the Bruins and the Mavericks, and watched is a loose word. I paid attention to the Bruins and the Mavericks come along and win when they weren't supposed to, right? Everybody was saying the Canucks were going to do it. Everybody was saying the Heat was going to do it. And I listened to sports radio.
And the Canucks fans acted like they were supposed to win the way they tore their town up.
Yeah, welcome to Canuckistania. Anyways, the point is that what really frustrated me is I listen to a lot of talk radio, as you might imagine, and the amount of I don't follow baseball, or I don't follow hockey and basketball enough to really understand a lot of the deep nuances. I'm not a huge rube with that stuff, but I know enough to see that if you have two teams in a championship situation, you can't just write it off one way or the other. And it was just like, before the Mavericks even showed up for the first game, it was Heat. The Mavericks were up 3-2, and they were still saying this is the Heat's to lose. And I'm like, hello, I get what you're saying, and I know the season gives a feeling, but is anybody watching what's happening on the court, right? Nobody was watching what's happening on the court, because LeBron was not stepping up. There was no reason to believe the Heat were still in that match after it was 3-2, when they were down 3-2.
No, not at all. And I tell you what, I think the media, whether it was print or television, all wanted the glamour team. And the glamour team were the big three.
Yeah.
And the big three did not show up. Maybe one showed up per night, maybe two did.
Right.
But all three of them did not show up.
No.
And I'm willing to say this. If my cat's got my tongue. Nowitzki. How you say it?
Nowitzki, isn't it?
Nowitzki.
Yeah.
However you say his name. If he would have done what LeBron has done, he would have been buried in the city of Dallas.
Buried.
LeBron has not taken any heat, because we realize he can't take the heat. He's got to come out with some comments that really he probably wishes he had never said.
Yeah.
But by the same token, Dallas is the NBA champion.
And rightfully so.
Yes,
they took it to the better team, and I think that it just was frustrating to watch, and it was the same thing with the Bruins. I kept hearing about how once they get back to Vancouver, they're not going to pull it off.
Right.
That they're stingy at home, the long goes better. And, the results kept speaking for themselves. I felt that consistently the better team was winning those games. Yet we were in complete denial of that reality when we talk about how local media, sports talk radio was handling that. And that was just really frustrating to watch. And to cap it off, before the first Giants Twins game, I was listening to some people that will remain nameless talking about the prospects the Twins had in San Francisco, and they said their pitching better show up because their hitting will not, right? Their hitting will not show up, and I personally took a lot of joy in watching them nail off 8 in a row in the first inning. Now, granted, the rest of the series
they didn't hit,
they were
right?
Right, I get it, but it was just kind of fun for me to hear them say that there's no way we're going to hit against these great pitchers, and then we hit 8, So that was, that kind of thing really frustrates me, and I think Dallas and Boston deserves kudos.
I think of it this way: 87 and 91.
Yeah, 87
we weren't supposed
especially.
to win here in Minnesota because we were going up against the mighty St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah.
History on their side.
Yeah.
Then in 91, it was the Atlanta Braves. It was 2 teams from worst to first, but the National League was considered the senior circuit.
Oh, yeah.
So, therefore, Minnesota is not ever supposed to win a championship, and it just goes to show you, if you got a manager in the dugout that knows his personnel, can get the best out of them, those are the teams that are going to win championships, and that's what we saw both in Boston and with the Dallas Mavericks this year, and I hope it continues this year in baseball.
I do too. I want to see, I have many reasons for disliking the Yankees and the Red Sox that go on too numerous, and a lot of them I couldn't say on radio. But I think it's always fun when I see a team that comes together because of the substance of the character as players, not because they've got one multi-billion-dollar player that's able to hit home runs every time. That team, there's something special about watching.
Well, if it was based off of payroll, the Yankees would win every year. They do have 27 championships.
A quarter of all of them.
Yes, they do have the championships, but you have to play in between the white lines.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The second thing I want to ask you, Al, is that, thinking of myself as your average Joe, kind of a schmuck sometimes, cruising along in life, I'm thinking about what the players and the owners are really arguing about in terms of the money and the revenue and what it means versus what the sport probably means to a lot of people. I grew up with my dad. We sit on the couch every Sunday. It was a big deal. I surrounded myself with my purple things. I had purple gum with grape soda.
Sure.
I watched my game. It was like a memorable moment. That, to me, is the substance of what made football really special. And I feel like you take this moment that people have like that, and then you start arguing about
billions of dollars.
Yeah, it isn't like we're arguing like the players are never getting paid or the owners are losing money. It's just that there's so much more involved now with TV rights and that kind of stuff. As a fan, if you were to mediate this, how would you handle it?
Well, I tell you the one thing, as a former player and now a fan of sports, I think some of the concerns that players and organizations should be contend with, first of all, pension plans.
Yes.
Retirement funds. Sure, there's a lot of salary that's being paid, but there's also a lot of debt that players incur during the course of their career because they think that this money's going to go on for a lifetime. And I think those things are more important than the initial upfront money. So if you ask me about that, my feelings are, when a contract's going to expire, you know what? Let's not talk about it in the newspaper or on television. Let's get to the generics, the basics of what is needed in life, and get back to the game being the utmost important, not only for the fans, but for the players. And my mother always told me, my father always alluded to this, he says, you know what? Money does not equate intelligence, and we're seeing that right now, where a lot of rich individuals are not being very smart when it comes to negotiating the contract.
Well, you get a lot of these kids who never had money management. They've been coddled through college and not really forced to take on those kind of things.
Sure.
They get handed these big checks, and you're going to see a lot of people that are poor. And I think you especially bring up a good point in the retirement factor, because the reality is that a lot of these players are now discovering injuries that we didn't even know could exist.
Yes.
And they're 40 and they're 50 years old, and their lifespan is incredibly shortened.
Sure.
And what are we doing to make sure that we protect that kind of investment that they've made? They've given their lives for something like that, and are we respecting it? That, to me, is a poignant argument. Whether or not we share an extra $60 billion million. You know, give it to kids that need to go to college and make something of themselves.
The common man does not understand what they're arguing about. Like,
there's too many zeros.
To play the game on the field.
Zeros, right.
And let's make it happen.
Right. And the last thing I want to ask you is, and this is just something that occurred to me, and I got the luxury of asking a former player who can give me some insight.
Sure.
You know, in 1991, when you guys played that World Series game, the last one, if it had been outside, it'd have been canceled.
Yes, it would have.
Right? Why? Because it was a blizzard outside,
yes.
right? So tell me, when we got an outdoor stadium now, and I don't know that we're going to be as willing to cancel those kind of things now, does that play to an advantage as a player who lives in a northern market? Is that going to be like, we're playing the Marlins, right? Who play 10 months out of the year in 80-degree weather, then they come up here and have to be cold. We have players that have been practicing and warming up in that. Is that an advantage for the Twins?
Oh, most definitely. Mike, I can't tell you the fact, we played indoors in a dome, but it was cold outside. Sure, the games would have been canceled.
Right.
But it is definitely an advantage. I think the Vikings should be outdoors as they're trying to get a new stadium outdoors. And baseball-wise, I think if you have an advantage, it should be exploited. And let's hope that we get back to that circumstance around here in Minnesota.
Yes.
And even in Florida, okay, there's a lot of rain.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to do a lot of things to get the guys on the field. But they use that heat to their advantage.
Oh,
and you see those fans and the humidifiers on the sidelines. You use what you got, and if you're going to win, you better take advantage of it.
And one last thought, Al, have you been fishing yet?
I have not.
Al, we're going to go fishing.
We're going to catch a fish?
It's my promise to you that we're going to catch fish because, first of all, I consider myself a bit of an expert fisherman, as I've said before, and I can't believe you've been in the state of Minnesota and not got a fish yet.
Well, I guess you have to throw a line out there to catch one. And when I've thrown it out there, nothing's jumped on my hook.
That's true. We need to get you out there fishing, and I'm going to have a fishing report, an upper deck report. I don't know what I'll call it yet. So, anyways, again, this is Jason Isaacson Ike with Al Newman, baseball legend. Upper Deck Report here. Again, go online and check out our ticket giveaway. It's for the 17th game against the Kansas City Royals and Al seats. And make sure you check out the Sky Deck. It's an amazing facility, and we're very grateful to be here doing our show. Again, thank you, Al. It's been great having you.
No problem. Let's do it again next week.